I was in the middle of replying to a client email when my phone buzzed. It was a message from my mother. The preview read, "Hi, sweetie, about Thanksgiving." I smiled instinctively. Thanksgiving had always been important in our family. The Monroe house in Denver transformed each year. Tables expanded, silver polished, the kitchen a battleground of old recipes and new disasters. I tapped open the message. "Your father and I have been thinking. We really want a peaceful Thanksgiving this year with Claire's family. Maybe you could skip this one. We need space. You understand, right? Love you." I stared at the screen. No typos, no emojis, no context, just a quiet rejection dressed up in courtesy. My breath caught. 1,000 memories flickered. Carving pies with Grandma, falling asleep under the fireplace glow, being the one who always arrived early, stayed late, cleaned up when everyone else went home. I had never missed a Thanksgiving. Not once. I reread the message, my heart pounding like it was the first time. "Skip this one. We need space. You understand, right?" The irony landed like ice on my spine. Because for 32 years, I'd always understood. I understood when Claire got her third chance at a failed business and my college tuition was declared a luxury. I understood when I wasn't asked to be maid of honor, because Claire needed the spotlight. I understood when my parents forgot to tell me about Dad's surgery until after it happened, because I was the strong one, the independent one. And now I was optional. I closed the laptop, numb. The email draft disappeared. The world blurred. There wasn't anger at first, just a hollow kind of silence. I looked out the window of my high-rise apartment. The Denver skyline gleamed against a setting sun, but I felt cold. How many years had I performed this daughter role to perfection? The reliable one. The one who sent birthday cards, remembered anniversaries, showed up with wine and restraint and folded linens. Now apparently I was too much. My presence disrupted peace. For a moment I hovered over the keyboard. I could have typed a paragraph. I could have said everything I had swallowed for years. But I didn't. Instead I typed one word, "enjoy," and hit send. That single word carried everything, the grief, the fury, the exhaustion, the clarity. They had no idea, of course. No idea that I had just finalized the purchase of a restored Tuscan villa, a dream I'd been building for years in secret. No idea that the vineyard was already trimmed, the kitchen ready, the fireplaces cleaned. No idea that this time I wouldn't be alone. Because if they didn't want me at their table, I'd set my own. And it would be unforgettable. I was 5 years old when Claire was born. Everyone said I became a little adult that day, helpful, mature, protective. I remember standing by the hospital bed, watching my mother cradle this red-faced, squirming miracle while I clutched a balloon that said, "Big sisters are the best." And from that moment on, I tried to be exactly that. The best. At first, it felt like love, like pride. Claire needed more help with her homework. I tutored her. She cried after her first heartbreak. I was there with hot cocoa and a playlist. But somewhere along the way, being the strong one stopped being a gift and became an excuse. "Claire just needs a little extra support. You've always been so self-sufficient, Bella. Don't take it personally. Claire's going through a lot." And every time I brought up the imbalance, even gently, I was met with that same gentle gaslighting. "You're imagining it. She's your sister, don't be jealous. We love you both the same, just in different ways." Different ways. Like how they paid for Claire's art school twice, even after she dropped out the first time. How they threw her a bridal shower that cost more than my first car, while my own milestone birthday was marked with a belated card and a bottle of store-brand wine. I kept showing up. Every Thanksgiving, every Christmas, every baby shower and move-in day and financial emergency that somehow ended up with me quietly wiring money behind the scenes. Because I was the reliable daughter. Reliable meant invisible when convenient, essential when needed, never the one who needs. I remember one Christmas, years ago, sitting on the Monroe family couch while everyone fawned over Claire's latest Etsy venture, custom hand-painted pet portraits, as if she had invented fire. Meanwhile, I had just closed a multi-million-dollar partnership at work. No one asked about it. No one even knew. I stopped expecting applause, stopped waiting for validation. But I never stopped hoping. Because children, no matter how grown, always hold on to a sliver of hope that someday their parents will look up and finally see them. Not as the default daughter, not as the backup parent, not as the one who doesn't need, but as someone worthy of love, simply for existing. And that's why their text, 6 casual sentences, shattered something deeper than they realized. It confirmed what I had been too proud to admit. They didn't just overlook me, they erased me. And maybe that erasure had started long before the message ever arrived. The villa wasn't an impulse, it was a promise. A whispered pact I made with myself 7 years ago, on a solo trip through Italy after a breakup that gutted me more than I'd ever admit. I had stood on a hillside in Tuscany, glass of wine in hand, and said silently, "Someday I'll have a place like this, not to run away, but to finally arrive." And now I had. Nestled just outside the village of Castelverde, the villa stood like a quiet survivor of centuries, its stone walls golden in the afternoon sun, roof tiled in that warm, earthy terracotta that only Italian sky can make sing. When the listing popped up in September, I didn't hesitate. I had the savings, I had the approval, more importantly, I had the clarity. The timing felt divine. My promotion at work had just gone through. I wasn't tied down, no husband, no kids, no one's expectations to meet except my own. I closed on it in mid-October, alone, deliberately. The local agent, Marcello, handed me the iron key with a flourish. "Benvenuta a casa tua, Signora Monroe." Welcome home. I spent my first night there curled up on a linen couch near the fireplace, wrapped in a wool throw, sipping Chianti and listening to the house breathe. The villa wasn't luxurious in the American sense. It was real, solid, worn in the best places. The kitchen bore knife marks from decades of meals prepared with intention. The terracotta floors were cool underfoot, grounding. A cracked window in the upstairs guest room let in birdsong every morning. It was mine. 3 bedrooms, a sprawling kitchen, a vine-covered pergola where I could already imagine long dinners with people who saw me, people who didn't measure my worth by how easy I made their life. There was even a small vineyard on the southern slope, abandoned but not hopeless. The idea of reviving it stirred something tender in me, like healing an old part of myself by tending to this quiet earth. I didn't tell anyone back home. Not Claire, not my parents, not even my closest colleagues. Some truths are too precious to share before they're ready. I needed this dream to be real on my own terms. But after the text, after "maybe you could skip this one," I knew what I had to do. I pulled out my journal, one I had carried since college, and wrote 3 words across a clean page. Thanksgiving in Tuscany. No turkey carved between passive-aggressive comments. No polite smiles stretched across old wounds. This time, the table would be mine. The chairs, mine to fill. The food, seasoned not with tradition, but with freedom. And the guests? I would start with those who had always seen me, not as strong, not as fine, but as Bella. Just Bella. And for once in my life, that would be enough. I didn't make a spreadsheet. I didn't draft a mass email. I sat on the sun-warmed steps of the villa, journal in hand, and wrote down names. Names of people who had never once made me feel like a burden, who had never started a sentence with, "You know Claire really needs," who had remembered my birthday without being reminded, who saw me even when my own family didn't. The first name was easy, Aunt Marion, my father's younger sister, a florist in Portland who once told me, "You remind me of the good kind of wildfire. You don't just survive, you reshape everything you touch." Next, Lucas and Elise, my cousins. Growing up, they were the only ones who ever asked how school actually was for me, not just how Claire was doing. Elise once slipped a note in my coat pocket at a family gathering that read, "You don't have to shrink just because someone else takes up space." They were in. Then came a few unexpected names. Rachel, a former roommate from my 20s. Kenji, a colleague turned friend who had seen me through work disasters, tequila nights, and long sobbing calls about family I tried to laugh off. And finally, with hesitation and a heartbeat louder than it should have been, I wrote, "Claire and her family." I didn't underline it, didn't circle it, just let it sit there. Because while I wasn't ready to forgive her yet, I also wasn't ready to become the kind of person who excluded people just because I finally had the power to. Over the next 48 hours, I sent out personal messages. No formal invitation, no RSVP deadline, just this. "I know this is last minute, and I know it's unconventional, but I've bought a villa in Tuscany, and I'm hosting Thanksgiving here. You're one of the people I'd be honored to share this with. If you're free, and if it feels right, there's a seat for you. No pressure, no guilt. Just choice." What surprised me wasn't who said yes, it was how quickly they said it. Aunt Marion called me in tears. "I've waited 20 years for someone in this family to break the pattern," she said. "Count me in." Lucas replied with a gif of someone dancing on a vineyard. Elise just texted, "Finally." Rachel called and screamed. Kenji sent me a voice memo titled, "Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes." And Claire? Silence. At first. Then a text from her husband, Evan. "Claire's not sure how to respond. She's overwhelmed, but she cried when she read it. We'll talk soon." I left it there. This wasn't about forcing anyone. It wasn't about proving anything. It was about choosing my people and finally realizing I had people. The family I was born into didn't have to be the family I brought to the table. The Wednesday before Thanksgiving, I stood in the kitchen of Villa Fiorentina, barefoot on cool terracotta, sleeves rolled up, hands deep in herbs and dough, and heard the driveway crunch under tires. The first car had arrived. I wiped my hands and stepped outside, heart pounding harder than it had for any promotion, any milestone. Aunt Marion emerged first, floral scarf fluttering, eyes already misty. She didn't say anything at first. She just hugged me, tight. "I'm proud of you," she whispered into my hair. "So damn proud." Within the hour, the villa came alive with voices. Luggage wheels on stone, doors opening, laughter bouncing off old walls. Elise and Lucas took the attic suite, claiming it with childlike glee. Rachel brought wine from California. Kenji arrived in a linen jacket, grinning like he'd just stepped into a movie. They wandered the vineyards, helped prep stuffing with rosemary and pecorino, set out linens on the harvest table under the pergola. And just like that, the villa wasn't just mine anymore, it was ours. By Thursday morning, the sun poured through the kitchen windows like warm honey. I was pulling a pie from the oven when my phone buzzed. A message from my mother. "Hi, honey. What time should we expect Claire and Evan for dinner? Can you remind them to bring the cranberry sauce?" I read it twice, then once more. No mention of me, no awareness of what was unfolding halfway across the world. She still thought I was in Denver, alone, quiet, obedient. "Can you remind them?" I almost laughed. Instead, I slipped the phone back into a drawer, closed it, walked away. That evening, as candles flickered and red wine breathed in crystal glasses, we gathered around the long table beneath strings of warm lights. The turkey rested on a wooden platter carved by a local artisan. Side dishes shimmered with both tradition and adventure. Sweet potato with balsamic glaze, roasted chestnuts from the nearby market, pumpkin ravioli tossed in brown butter. I stood at the head of the table, my place, my table, and raised my glass. "To found families," I said simply. "To truth without drama. To peace that doesn't ask us to shrink." The clinking of glasses echoed like a benediction. We ate, we laughed, we lingered, and sometime during dessert, Kenji nudged me. "Check your messages," he whispered. I stepped inside and opened my phone. 12 missed calls, 7 voicemails, texts from both my parents. "Isabella, where is everyone? Why is no one answering? We were supposed to have dinner at 6. Did something happen? We're worried." There it was, the dawning realization. The house they thought would be full wasn't. The daughter they dismissed wasn't alone. They had planned a dinner for a family that no longer showed up, and they never saw it coming. Back outside, dessert had just been served. Candles danced in the wind. Laughter erupted from a joke I had missed. I paused in the doorway, taking it all in. This was the dinner they missed. Not just a meal, a movement, a new tradition. Built not on guilt or obligation, but on choice. And I didn't need them to know everything. The silence was speaking loud enough. It was nearly midnight when the villa fell quiet. The candles had burned low. Plates were stacked in the sink. Soft music played in the background, and most of my guests had wandered off to bed or into cozy corners with mugs of tea and conversation. I was about to do the same when my phone lit up. Incoming call, Mom and Dad. I stared at the screen. They had called 6 times earlier that evening I hadn't picked up. But now, after everything, after a dinner they weren't invited to but could never forget, I knew I had to answer. I stepped into the study, closed the door, and took a deep breath before pressing accept. "Isabella," my mother's voice cracked through first, tight and breathless. "We've been trying to reach you. Are you okay? Where are you? Why is everyone gone?" I waited a beat, then answered quietly. "I'm in Italy." Silence, heavy, stuttering silence. "I bought a villa in Tuscany last month," I continued. "Everyone is here. Aunt Marion, Elise, Lucas, even Rachel, Claire's family too. But," my father's voice entered now, laced with disbelief, we told you not to come to Thanksgiving." "I know," I said, and I listened. "But we didn't mean for you to take everyone," he said. "We just wanted a quiet holiday." "You got it," I replied. "You got exactly what you asked for, a quiet table." "But not like this," my mom said, her voice rising. "You ambushed us. You blindsided us." "No," I said, calm, steady. I stopped chasing a seat at a table that kept shrinking around me. My father let out a long sigh. "This feels cruel, Isabella." And that's when the door creaked open behind me. I turned. Claire stood there, barefoot in pajama pants, her hair messy from sleep. She didn't say a word, just walked over and tapped the speaker button. "Hi, Mom, Dad, it's me." Another beat of silence. "Claire," my mother gasped, "are you okay? When are you coming home?" "We're staying through the weekend," Claire said, her tone level. "And you need to listen to Bella." "What?" my dad snapped. "Claire, this doesn't involve—" "Yes, it does," she cut in. And for the first time in my life, Claire sounded older than me, steadier. "I've watched you ignore her for years," she said. "Make her your emotional safety net, your afterthought. And I let it happen because it benefited me." My breath caught. I hadn't expected this. "I'm not proud of that," she continued. "But Bella didn't take your family away. You lost it, one piece at a time." My mother was crying now. I could hear it in the crackling silence. But we love her, she whispered. I know, I said. But love without respect isn't love, it's convenience. No one spoke for a while. Finally, my father's voice softened. What do you want from us? I looked at Claire. She nodded once. I want to stop performing to be seen, I said. I want a relationship that doesn't hinge on who's easiest to love. I don't know if we can change, my mom said. But you can try, Claire finished for me. Another pause. Then finally, we can try. The next morning, the villa stirred slowly. The scent of fresh bread drifted in from the kitchen. Elise was baking with Aunt Marion. Laughter echoed faintly from outside. Lucas was teaching Jack how to skip rocks across the vineyard fountain. And Claire was waiting for me in the sunroom. She looked different in the daylight, less like the golden girl I had spent my life orbiting, more like someone trying to find her own center again. She was holding 2 mugs of coffee. When I entered, she handed me one without a word. We sat, in silence. The kind that no longer felt heavy, just full. Finally, she spoke. I never realized how much of you I didn't see, she said. I just accepted the version Mom and Dad gave me. You were the strong one, the one who didn't need anything, and that made it easier for me not to look closer. I stared at the swirling surface of my coffee. I stopped expecting you to, I admitted. Claire nodded slowly. It's strange, I used to think you were cold, distant, but now I realize you were exhausted. My throat tightened. It was the first time she had ever named what I had carried. Not resentment, not jealousy, just exhaustion, from being the one who never broke, who never could. She continued. I resented how you seemed to have your life together, your career, your apartment, your solo trips. I thought it came easy to you. I laughed softly, not out of humor, but disbelief. Claire, I was building peace with my bare hands while you were handed applause for just showing up. She winced. I know, and I don't blame you if you never fully trust me again. There it was, the honesty, not wrapped in apology, not sugar-coated, just placed gently between us. I looked at her, really looked. Not as the sister who always took, not as the child our parents protected, but as a woman, flawed, trying, tired of the roles just like I was. I don't need perfect, I said, I just need real. Claire blinked, then smiled, soft and unguarded. I can do real, she said. We sat there for a while longer, talking about nothing, and everything. The villa wrapped around us like a safe cocoon, this home I had built without even knowing it would heal more than just me. Before we stood to join the others, Claire touched my arm. Thank you, she whispered, for still inviting me. You didn't have to. I nodded. I know, but I wanted to. Because sometimes love isn't about who deserves it. It's about who's finally ready to hold it properly. And that morning, for the first time in our lives, we were 2 sisters, not playing parts, but simply showing up. Thanksgiving morning in Tuscany arrived quiet and gold. The vineyard shimmered under a thin layer of mist, and the hills beyond the villa stretched wide and open like a held breath. I stood barefoot in the kitchen, the same way I had every morning since arriving, watching coffee percolate while the world slowly woke around me. But this morning felt different, because this time last year I had stood in a Denver apartment, alone, waiting for a call that never came. And now, there were footsteps overhead, laughter echoing down the staircase, a child's voice calling out from the terrace, and the smell of rosemary, butter, and something like home. By mid-morning, the villa was alive. Elise and Lucas set the long harvest table under the pergola, stringing fresh olive branches down the center. Rachel arranged candles and ceramic bowls of pomegranate. Kenji uncorked wine with the flair of someone who finally felt like family. Claire helped the kids fold linen napkins into little birds, smiling more freely than I'd seen in years. Even Evan, usually quiet, offered to grill vegetables over the outdoor fire pit. No one was performing, no one was competing, there were no comparisons, no snide remarks, no waiting for someone to approve who we were allowed to be. Just presence, just joy. At 4 p.m. we sat down to eat. The table was long, mismatched chairs, reused plates, candles flickering and wine bottles turned vases. I stood, wineglass in hand, as the sunset turned the sky a soft burnt orange. I don't have a speech, I began. Everyone looked up, quiet, ready. But I do have something I've never said out loud before. I paused, not for effect, just to breathe. For years I thought Thanksgiving was about holding it all together, being reliable, making sure no one noticed I was tired, or hurt, or invisible. I glanced at Claire, she gave the smallest nod. But this year, I didn't hold anything together. I let go, of expectations, of performance, of needing to be loved in a specific way. I looked down the table, and in doing that, I found this, you, us, a new kind of family. A beat of stillness. Then Aunt Marion raised her glass. To the table Bella built, she said, voice thick with pride. And to the woman who finally sat at the head of it. Glasses clinked, Laughter broke open, and in that sound, something inside me finally settled. Sometimes the most powerful response isn't loud. It's not slamming doors or shouting truths. Sometimes it's just quietly setting your own table and watching who shows up. Isabella didn't need to shame anyone. She didn't need to fight for love that refused to see her. She simply stepped away from the noise and created something so beautiful it spoke for her. Maybe that's the lesson we all need. That real peace doesn't come from being chosen. It comes from choosing yourself, every time. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever had to reclaim your place in this world, or build something from the pieces others left behind, you're not alone. We tell these stories for you. So if you're building your own version of home, if you're drawing new boundaries with old names, or if you just needed to hear that it's okay to walk away and start again, welcome, you're in the right place. Subscribe to Sweet Revenge, Happy Ending for more stories like this, because healing isn't always quiet, but it's always worth it.